Hey guys, welcome back to the Grant Mitt Podcast, episode number 85. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about why it's important to defend yourself, how to do it, and how you can start utilizing this to actually accelerate your career, your life, and end up with the right people. In life, if you do not defend yourself, nobody will. Nobody is coming to save you. And in the world of power, the world of success, and the world of competition in business, it is naive to assume that people are not going to attack you, try to smear your name, do things behind the scenes to manipulate the situation, make people choose to view you wrong, or say lies or gossip. These are a lot of unspoken things that you're not supposed to say. And while it feels good to just say positive things and motivational stuff, and there's a time and place for that. It's important to be motivated. We cannot be naive. And we have to realize that if we want to do great things in this world, you have to know how to deal with people who are going after you negatively. We have to learn how the power game works. We have to learn how business works and why people do what they do. Yes, do I agree that this is unfair, that this is immoral, or this isn't right? For sure. But I'm also a realistic person and realize that no matter how much I choose to believe that, if you want to be successful in life, you need to know how to navigate people who are bad, who have bad intentions, or want things that you clearly do not want. And that's okay, but let's actually know how to handle it. Okay? Humans all have animal-like instincts because we are animals. Humans can sense fear, we can sense hesitancy, we can sense when someone is nervous. In the same sense, we can also pick up when someone is to not be messed with or when we should respect them. You'll notice humans' body language and tone will adjust around people who present power, who present a confidence, and they're not trying to win over people because they're coming in as a force of who they are. If you've been in high school, you understand the game of power. You understand why people do what they do. And so it's important to know how to navigate these things. And it's important to understand when and how to defend yourself. So not only can you protect what you're working for, your family, your business, but how you can ultimately become even more successful. Now, I've had a lot of hard lessons with this. You guys know, if you've listened to this podcast more than once, I'm born and raised in Texas. And in Texas, we are very polite. That doesn't guarantee that you're a perfect person, but we are trained to be polite, to say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, please, thank you, hold doors open for people. So naively, when I moved to New York City, and I was living in downtown Brooklyn, right off Atlantic Avenue, about a half a mile from the Barclays Center. And when I was living in that environment, I quickly learned, it didn't take long, to figure out that the way that I presented myself, being a Southern gentleman from Texas, was not going to be as accepted here. Once I got to know people, there was no difference. People were cool as hell. But when I was meeting them for the first time, I kid you not, I was turning gazelles into lions because I would say, "Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh, how are you doing?" And they were looking at me crazy and confused. It wasn't because they were bad people. It's because they were in a different culture and environment that did not reward that type of behavior. That's the game of life and the game of power. You're constantly going to enter in different rooms and arenas where there's an unspoken rules and an unspoken game of power that you do not know about, that you have to be able to pick up on very quickly. And this takes emotional intelligence to do so. But the one common thing that I've learned, and I have lived in some extremely diverse backgrounds. For example, the high school that I finished out with the last 2 years, me being a white person in America, you assume that I would be the majority. Where I went to high school, I was actually the minority. Where I played college football in both California and New York, I was both the minority in both of those situations. So I'm actually, in many cases, used to being the person that is not in the majority in those specific areas, right? I get in the grand scheme of things in America right now, I think I'm still in the majority, although that's going to change very quickly in the next 1 to 2 decades, which is fine. But in every situation, there's a different power game. And what I learned that there's a common denominator in all these different situations. I've been in multi-million-dollar meetings. I've been around people that are worth billions of dollars. I've been with the worst of the worst. I can't even name the rest of the things. But my point to you is this. The two common things in all of those things that play a role in all of those relationships and all of those social dynamics is trust and respect. Trust and respect. If you're in the worst neighborhood in the entire country that you're in, or you're in the wealthiest restaurant or the wealthiest neighborhood, trust and respect play into everything. And if you can learn how to gain more trust and gain more respect, no matter who you are, what you look like, what you know, or where you live, your life will improve for the better. And if you can pick up and see which people to trust, your life will also improve. As I mentioned, when I came into the New York situation and when I moved out to Long Beach, I was in an environment that was different. It was great because it forced me to grow. It forced me to learn how to survive. And if I didn't live in those environments, I would not be a tenth of how successful I am in business right now. Because in business, 50 Cent talks about this, that he said the music industry, people were more ruthless than they were when he was selling drugs in Queens. He said they were ruthless. They just did it with a smile and a suit on. There was no difference. And so when 50 Cent entered the business world, he was so ready and he was fearless. Because of how ruthless he was used to seeing people, now it just looked a little bit different, but it was essentially the same game. What you have to start doing is respecting yourself and standing up and defending who you are and your ideas and values. Now, this is not to say that everything that someone tells you, you suddenly have to freak out, act crazy, yell at them, and be Mr. Tough Guy. You have to pick and choose your battles wisely. And I can tell you that depending on what circumstance that you're in, actually a really good amount of times that you could defend yourself, you should actually walk away and let them to diminish into irrelevance. But there are times that being the better person, taking the high road, is a fatal mistake in your career, your relationships, and in the social dynamics of the group, area, community, or country that you live in. If people disrespect you, say things that are not true about you, your name, your business, your family, your life, and you continuously do not stand up for yourself or defend the opposite perspective, which should be the truth, you are teaching everyone that is hearing that messaging that not only that it is true, but that if people mess with you, pick at you, finesse you, try to get at you, that it is okay. You don't have to tell anybody, but they can see this visually, that you are a person that does not stand up for themselves. I learned this quickly in New York, that if someone says something disrespectful to you, whether you're on the subway, whether you're leaving school, whether you're walking on the street, whether you're in a business meeting, or for me, I was playing college football, you got to address it immediately without hesitation. Because at the end of the day, people are going to respect you. And so I picked this up quickly because I realized that just going around and being Mr. Nice Guy isn't going to work. That doesn't mean I become an asshole, but that just means be a little bit more reserved, be a little bit more calmer. But the second someone said something that was against me, against my name, try to mess with me, punk me, do whatever, I addressed it on site immediately, without hesitation, and without fear of the repercussions of me defending myself. And within about a week or two, it was all good. Everyone was cool. Nobody messed with me because they knew they'd have to deal with a problem. And even if they could win, even if they had more leverage than me, people are going to still think twice about attacking you if they know that you're going to always defend yourself, because you're consistently teaching the crowd that doing that is a fatal mistake and it's not going to be good for your business, for yourself, for your reputation, or whatever. You have to do this. One thing that I learned running a company, and this is just the ultimate chess game because it is a massive power play. People's words are, for the most part, of facade and said all for manipulative reasons, or to get something, or to move up in the chain, or to make them or make you or someone around you perceive them in a different light. So you have to become a master at people and their body language and their tones and their actions. And you have to pick up on all these things. And if you guys don't want to do this, just go work at McDonald's. But even then, you're going to deal with the same stuff there too. You're just going to make less. So what I learned is that anytime I would make a statement, we wouldn't have any issues. For example, if someone did something that was wrong or immoral or did something to hurt the company, and I made a statement, I let them go, I handled it with legal, whatever the case may be, no one would mess with the company for typically 8 to 12 months. And then out of nowhere, you would notice little signs. People would start being late. People would start saying the wrong things. People would stop making the calls they're supposed to make. They did this the wrong way. They did a shortcut, or someone did something that was a fireable offense. And each time, if I let it slide even once, I created an even bigger problem that would eventually get to a point where I have no other choice but to fire lots of groups of people to cut out the cancer. So the key to that lesson was catch it quickly and address it as quickly as possible. Don't tolerate it. And this is tough if you're not used to being the guy or girl that addresses and has uncomfortable conversations. But you're likely 1 to 2 uncomfortable conversations away from improving your business, improving your relationships, improving your life. Because deep down, we all know what we need to do. We all know that we need to have that conversation with Sally who's not performing like she should be. Or you're in a relationship with someone that's not the right fit, but you feel bad because you don't want to hurt their feelings, but you know you probably shouldn't be dating them. You're 1 to 2 uncomfortable conversations away from improving your life. You need to toughen up and make the damn conversation. You have to. Okay? So I'm going to give you 3 simple steps that you guys can implement to not only better defend yourself, but actually handle the game of power, move up in your career, your life, and whatever you want to do. Okay? Number 1, in the game of life and business, under any circumstances, do not show weakness. The media lied to you and told you vulnerability is strength. It's okay to be vulnerable. They're full of shit. Okay? That is a wrong idea. That is not true. Be vulnerable with your mom, not your boss. Your mom is going to love you regardless. If you need to go cry, if you want to talk about some deep-rooted feeling, go talk to a therapist, go talk to your mom, go talk to your grandma. Don't talk to your boss. Don't talk to your employees and tell them that you're going through a lot right now. They'll feel bad for you. They're not going to suddenly think you're a horrible person. But don't be surprised when the employees that you just try to be vulnerable with use your internet to apply for other jobs and go work for someone who's not vulnerable. Don't show weakness. This is the truth of life. Well, Grant, that's not fair. I don't think how it should be. Great. That's amazing. I agree with you. But that's not how the world works. Always show strength. Always show strength. Take the damn day off if you have to. Get your mind right. But don't show weakness. If you want to be successful, you have to be tenacious. You cannot tolerate bullshit. That doesn't mean that you need to be Mr. Tough Guy. You need to be rude all the time. If you know me personally, you know I'm joking around, laughing, I'm relaxed all the time. But if I'm worried about business or I'm in the middle of something, I'm not messing around. Because I know that there's people's lives on the line. If we don't succeed, I have to let people go. I have to fire people who have kids, who have wives, who has people they're taking care of. I have to be tenacious. I have to make difficult decisions. And I have to have difficult conversations. Or my team, my family, my organizations will not be successful, and neither will yours. Okay? 2, nobody is coming to save you. Stand up for yourself. Okay? Early on, I was working at this company and I was moving up very quickly. I'd quickly become one of the most successful sales reps, and then I ultimately had built the number 1 team, and now I was managing basically half of the entire company's sales all across the country. And I was doing at the time around 4.5 to 5 million in sales volume per month under my management. And what happened was I was still young at the time. I think at that point I was 23 years old, maybe about to be, no, you know what, I was still 23. And the CEO of that company wanted someone with a little bit more experience to come in and be a VP of sales. And this person came in, and while most people would be threatened, I was actually excited because then look, I was young. I was only 23. I was making six figure. I was doing a phenomenal job. And this was going to be a chance for me to learn from someone who had more experience than me. I was like, cool. But this was interesting. When this guy came in, boy, he was a wrong hire. He had probably the biggest ego of any individual I've ever met in my entire business career. I mean, I kid you not, guys. To this day, he probably had the most fragile ego out of anybody I've ever seen. I'm not going to say his name. But I made the mistake of not playing dumb and sitting back early on when he came into the play. This was a fatal mistake on the beginning part, so it looked like. And I learned my mistake and he paid the price. But what ended up happening is he felt threatened by me. He started calling me out in front of people, disrespecting me, trying to talk bad about me to the CEO, who I had a really good relationship with. But he poked the wrong bear because he didn't know that I had no problem with him being ahead of me and that I actually wanted to learn from him. But he misjudged me and made the fatal mistake of trying to come after me. I'm a counterpuncher. If you know me, guys, I will never talk bad about anybody. I will never go after someone in a negative way, ever. But if you come after me, my counterpunch is coming harder. It's that simple. So when I picked this up, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why is he doing this? And I remember we're in one of these early meetings. We had all the managers in the company there, and the CEO would call me nonstop because I was damn near running almost the entire company. I was responsible for more than 50% of the sales revenue that the company had. So I was actively involved in the business. And he kept calling me, so I answered. And then all of a sudden, he's like, Grant, and he's yelling at me. And he calls me out, and he's like, why the hell are you on your phone, blah, 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 blah. And I said, man, I apologize. I promise you I'm not trying to be disrespectful. The CEO, I'm not going to say his name, but the CEO called me. It was a really important thing that had to do with a couple of deals. I apologize. And they said, okay. But he didn't let that go. So what was interesting is about 2 months later, he had this like retreat thing where he brought in all the leadership of the company to his house, and how we're going to reform the company, do all these different things. I was like, great, that's cool. Let's learn. I got my notes out, and he's talking, and the disrespect had kind of continued, and I never really checked him yet because at the end of the day, he was ahead of me, and it just never got bad enough that I need to really address it. And we're sitting there, and then he's talking about something. He goes, and guys, and also we don't need to be on the phones while on Zoom, like Grant, who was on the phone for 10 minutes straight while we were on a meeting. And he just raised it, and he starts going off. And I'm sitting here looking at the whole company, and I want you guys to keep this in mind. And this is where I say pick your battles. I want you to start cussing out your bosses now. You got to realize in this situation, I had a ton of leverage. If I had no leverage, I would have sat there and had a private conversation with him after, or I would have addressed it in a different way. But I was responsible for more than 50% of the revenue. I was close. I mean, close with the CEO, with all the managers that were in that room, all of the head of operations, so much so that if this guy said you were fired, I would be unfired so quickly that he couldn't do anything about it because he was brand new and he didn't have that leverage. So he went crazy, so much so that everyone in the room was like, whoa, and start turn and look at me. And no one had ever seen me really snap because I'm a very respectful, kind person. And the second he said that, I was like, whoa, don't you ever effing talk to me like that again. I don't know who the hell you think you are. I'm responsible for this much revenue in the company. If I was not here, you would not have your job. If I was not here, half of this room would not be able to work here. I just start firing on him, right? Going off on him. And he's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm like, no. Look, no one is coming after you, but don't ever disrespect me again. Ever. I've been nothing but kind and respectful to me, and I get it. I love your ideas. I love everything. I'm sitting here taking notes, but don't ever talk to me like that ever again. And he's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And everyone is staring like, holy shit, did Grant just scream at the VP of sales? I had the leverage to do so. But since that moment, he was kissing my ass. He apologized. Everyone in the room was like, whoa, don't mess with this guy. And because he came at me in this way, I was like, nah, you're gonna pay the price. Next thing you know, 6 weeks later, you know who got fired? That guy, not me. And you have to be careful who you go after. And this is why I tell you guys, I never, ever will attack someone first. But it's important to teach the room, teach your business, teach your industry that going after you negatively, smearing things, saying lies, all these different things will come with a price. And the people that tell you to take the high road are not in positions that they're winning, or they came from money so they can act like that. But in the real game of life, you have to be tenacious. You got to hit them back harder. Okay. Number 3, people are going to meet you at the standards that you choose to stand by. A lot of you guys are dealing with a lot of bad things right now. You have really bad, let's say you have a bad relationship, you have bad friends, you're at a job you don't like, and you're sitting there complaining about it, but you forget to realize that at the end of the day, it was your discernment and decision that allowed that person or that decision, that business, that whatever, to enter your life. Your standards are the guardrails of your life. They protect you from bullshit and from bad people that should not be in your area. So what's important is to know what is acceptable and not acceptable to you. What things are non-negotiables in your life? Because if you lack self-esteem and confidence, and you do not stick to standards because you just want attention, or you don't know how to be patient and wait for the right opportunity, you're going to constantly deal with the wrong people who do not have the best interests or are just simply not good for your life. It is so important to do this. It's like the saying says, act like a king to be treated like one. Watch the difference of you walking into a restaurant where you're dressed to the nine, you're with a group of people who are all good looking, well dressed. You pull up in a nice car or in a black SUV, they let you in. Let's say you walk in and you hug the manager or the owner and they sit down. What is everyone in the room going to do? How are they going to perceive you? They're like, ooh, who is this guy? Who is this girl? If you walk in and you're dressed sloppy, you don't know anyone, your body language is all closed off, you're hesitant, you don't look people in the eye, how do you think the people in that room are going to perceive you? They're not going to come up and tell you, hey, you look super weak. I know that. And sometimes it makes sense to be low key. I do that all the time. Sometimes I'll dress down so people leave me alone. And that's different. But my point to what I'm trying to tell you guys is yeah, I get this isn't fair, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I want the game to be. It doesn't matter what I wish things would be. It matters what is. And so if the world works like this, then you need to either accept the game and play it or just lose. Just lose. And it's important to know that if you command respect, people will respect you. If you do not stay friends or in relationships with people who lack integrity or don't do certain things that are very important to you, then you're going to start noticing a world in which these people do not exist in your reality because your standards protected you from it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. As always, make sure to follow me on all my social media channels at Grant Mitt. Also, make sure to subscribe to my new newsletter. Deliver to you every single Tuesday with life-changing business knowledge in just 5 minutes. The link is right below. It's called the Recreate newsletter. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you guys again for episode 86. Thanks, guys.